Egg donation explained simply. It's the reproductive technique with the highest pregnancy rates. No hormonal ovarian stimulation or daily injections are needed. It has a much lower risk of miscarriage due to the patient's age and also the exhaustive chromosomal and genetic study that IB conducts on all donors, which is later given to the recipient. Treatment outline for the recipient patient. The treatment consists of tablets and occasionally adhesive patches combined with vaginal pessaries whose instructions will be individually prescribed for each patient. The goal is to prepare the uterus for maximum receptiveness. A scan performed several days after treatment will confirm whether there is an adequate uterine response and will determine the ideal moment for the upcoming transfer. Your regular gynecologist can perform this scan if you live far from an IB center. Selection of the ideal donor. When the patient decides to trust Instituto Bernabeu for her egg donation treatment, our entire team makes sure a strict process control is followed. The egg donation department will search our bank of over 500 candidates for the donor most similar to the recipient in terms of eye and skin color, hair type, height, weight, and blood type. In Spain, donation is anonymous and voluntary. Before being included in our bank, our multidisciplinary team studies the donor's suitability. The initial selection is made with an evaluation by our clinical psychologist using the EMAE psychological questionnaire. We later perform a complete medical study on the egg donor consisting of a blood analysis to rule out any type of infectious disease such as AIDS, hepatitis B, C, or syphilis, a karyotype and genetic study to rule out any diseases that could be transmitted to the future baby, and a study conducted by the gynecologist to check her reproductive and gynecological health. At the same time, a biologist prepares and capacitates the semen to increase its fertilizing abilities. We always prefer to be as natural as possible and thus apply classic IVF. That is, we leave thousands of spermatozoids around the egg so that the strongest among them naturally fertilizes it. However, if the semen quality is reduced, we apply the ICSI technique, which gives nature a helping hand. It involves putting a single pre-selected sperm inside the egg. We also know that just as it happens in nature, only 60 to 70% of these obtained eggs are normal and mature. Only 60 to 70% of these eggs will be fertilized, and not all fertilized embryos develop normally. This period of time lasts between 3 and 5 days, and we make sure only the best embryos are transferred. What are the advantages? First of all, it represents the natural selection of the best embryos. The weaker ones will not survive the days following fertilization, and so the survivors are the most likely to succeed. Secondly, it allows for the possibility of being able to freeze suitable embryos for future transfers using a technique called vitrification. This avoids the previous process of stimulation, collection, and embryo culture for a new attempt in the event of the first cycle failing, or if you would like other children in the future. After 18 hours, we find out the number of eggs showing the first signs of fertilization. 48 hours later, on day 3, the embryos now have between 7 and 9 cells, and depending on their quality, number, and quantity, the time of transfer is decided. From the 4th day, the embryos are called blastocysts. These cells are already compacted and can even be seen moving. The 5th day is the maximum amount of time the embryos can be outside the womb. Now, the most anticipated and desired event takes place, the transfer. There is no need for sedation. It's a painless process where the gynecologist transfers the resulting embryo or embryos into the womb using a thin ultrasound-guided catheter, which allows him or her to see the uterus and the best site to deposit the embryo. After about 10 or 11 days, a pregnancy blood test is performed to confirm the success of the procedure. This looks at the presence of BHCG in the blood. This is the hormone that early embryos produce. Its value helps us evaluate the pregnancy as well as the possibility of having twins. Pregnancies in future children conceived through assisted reproduction techniques develop in the same way as those achieved naturally.